Hello, my friend, and welcome back to Mama Magma Yoga. My name is Tamu, and I'm here with your energy practice for the 4th week of March 2022. So today, we're sort of coming back to our knowing. We're going to tap into where our knowing is located in our body so that we can help ourselves on this journey to living life with more joy, with more ecstasy. And this will also help us feel like and come into harmony with that sense of being in harmony with the flow of the universe, and like we're participating in that flow. So there's more control. Control is an illusion, but we're in the flow with that rhythm of the universe, and we have agency within it. So I invite you to stand or sit. Maybe you're just listening to this one while you're doing dishes, while you're cleaning your house. This is just a quick little practice to help you tune into those places and to give you a reminder about how you can tap into that knowing within yourself and bring yourself closer into living a life filled with joy. So, first of all, a little reminder that pursuit of living a life of joy or being happy is a little bit of a new age spiritual capitalism catchphrase because we're all longing for that. So this is a journey. Remember that it's a journey, and remember to really honor and own and be in presence with what you're actually feeling. So that's part of living that life of bringing more joy into every day, is not taking those emotions that maybe feel uncomfortable and pushing them to the side and creating denial within the self. It's to fully embrace those emotions, those feelings, that reality of the body reacting, the body memory, the body knowing, and leaning in and allowing ourselves to feel all that needs to be felt, while also remembering to take a step back, to come to the place of self that is behind the ego. So how do we get there? How do we find that place behind the ego? Well, one of the biggest ways is through meditation. So we'll do a little meditation here. This doesn't have to be one where you're sitting in lotus and hands clasped at the heart and nice deep breaths and doing the whole intentional thing. Let's just really practically settle into this one. So the knowing centers within your body are not just the mind. So let's try to let the mind do what it's doing. Blah, 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 blah. It's going to keep talking. It's going to keep talking. That's what the mind does. It takes out external stimuli and it comments on it. It analyzes it. It tries to keep us safe. The other knowing centers in our body, especially the ones that we have been sort of taught to pay attention to by the spiritual world, are our guts. So our solar plexus and our sacral chakra is where we really feel our response to the world, where we know, yes, this is right for me. No, that is wrong for me. No, I feel uncomfortable here. So tapping into those knowing centers in your body. And also into the third eye, which is different than the mind. The third eye is that energetic center in the body that is expansive and can sort of meld time, if you will, and see far distances, can stretch that imagination into the future and see possibility, and can draw on ancient wisdom from our ancestors, can draw on that spiritual knowing of the source self coming down through the crown, and then allowing ourselves to see from that perspective, from that third eye. So tapping into, and then, there's also the heart. Yes, the heart is a big knowing center. We'll tap in there in a minute. There's the crown chakra, and there's our root chakra down in the perineum that is our sense of home, our sense of safety. So while you're doing your dishes, while you're listening to this video, whatever you're doing, maybe puttering in your garden, it's beautiful weather out now, well, getting there. Maybe you're on a walk and you're listening to this. Let's really just feel those energetic centers. So just allow yourself to imagine them. Imagine your root chakra, that deep burgundy tone, that sense of safety, that sense of grounding. Then into your sacral chakra, feel into there. What's going on in there today? That sense of sensuality, of sexuality, of creativity, of visceral feeling, of emotion and movement, of unpredictability, of vibrancy. Then into the solar plexus, and that sun, that inner sun that shines, the I can, the I will, the drive to do, to create, to become. Tap into the heart center. Oh, how do you love the world? How do you interact with the world? What brings you a sense of love? And what makes your heart overflow? And where does that love come from? How big is it? Then into the throat chakra and how you speak your truth out into the world. And how you vocalize and express your true nature out into the world. And then into that third eye, that mystic self. What do you know? That priestess self or priest self, that magician self, that tuning in on those higher frequencies. And then the crown chakra. You're tapping into your source self, into universal self, as it rides down the tendrils of your energetic field and slides down in through the spine and down through the rest of those energy centers, up and down the sushumna of the spine. So just feeling those, tapping into them, allowing your imagination to explore them. Feeling your truth, your wisdom, your knowing in these centers. Then let's bring our energy, our attention into the heart. Imagine at the core of the heart, there is this eye of a storm. I heard this description recently and it really resonates with me because I've used it a few times, and then to hear someone else in the spiritual community, someone who I admire, to use the same term was like, yeah, that does. It feels really right for me. So maybe it resonates with you as well. Is coming into the core of the heart, into that core shaft, that sushumna that runs up and down the spine, that energetic center. And as it resides in the heart, that open space that is only as open or as closed as you give it permission to be, where the core self resides, where the I behind the ego resides. See if you can just imagine that, feel that. And then the ego self, the body, the mind, the ego, is the sort of the tornado around that, how life happens to us, how we respond to it, how we express ourselves out into the world, and the drama that happens, and what life path we choose, and all of that kind of stuff is sort of the storm around that eye center. And we're learning to come back more and more through our meditation practice, through our learning, to that center of the storm. And from that center, from that core, we then have access to all parts of the self without restriction. So just see if you can allow yourself to feel that center for a moment. That calm, that stillness, that vastness. that is you between lifetimes, that is you connected to all other aspects of self, whether that is your fellow human beings, whether that is the core of the planet, whether that is the universe. Now I invite you to introduce your breath a little bit here. See if you can breathe into that space, opening permission, allowing that inner column of beingness to expand a little bit more. Grounding down into that space. Now notice how tapping into that space all at once helps you to feel more grounded, more present in your body, and also more connected to the bigger picture, to your soul, to your source self, and to the universe. So there's this dual action that happens there when we come into that stillness in the center. And the more we practice coming into that stillness in the center of our beings, the more we can watch our lives from sort of an unbiased perspective. We've moved the ego out of the way, or not necessarily we've recognized the ego for what it is. It's a processing instrument. It is a protective instrument. It helps to keep us safe and to process the outside world. But it gets muddled up with all kinds of other stuff and has trauma layered on top of it. So we're learning to come back to center. And from this center is our true knowing. So when we have big questions in our lives, when we're uncertain about which way to turn, and we find ourselves up in the A drive, as I like to call it, and we're analyzing, and we're throwing tarot cards, and we're writing out lists, and we're asking friends for advice, and we're in the head. We need to let go of being in the A drive and come back to that center column. Let the ego do what it does. Let the mind chatter happen. See if you can just let it run like ticker tape across the mind. I know it's not easy and it takes practice. And finding a place of stillness, finding a place out in nature, just creating sacred space for that moment to take it back to center, meditating, going for a walk, helps us to tune back into our true inner knowing. And when we can tap into that true inner knowing, all of a sudden, we know. That's when the true changes take place in our life, is the ones that come from the soul, the ones that benefit us, the ones that lead to new possibilities and shift things and heal old wounds and heal trauma and alchemize the pain, the sorrow, the loneliness into new becoming and blossoming, is when we can come back to that inner knowing and just listen, not project what we think should happen, not try to analyze, but getting the mind out of the way. And we're allowing our body and source to tell us, whoosh, that's it. All of a sudden, we know. And it's right at our core, right in our heart. It makes the whole body feel alive. And we're not still left with confusion, with rubbing our hands together, wringing our wrists and being like, oh, I'm not really sure. Do you think it's okay? We're not asking other people for their opinion to validate our life choices. Even if they're small ones. Am I going to eat a burger today? Well, if that's in alignment with what you need to have happen today, then yes. If it's not, if you know it's going to hurt your body, if you know that it's going to cause you pain later on, or it's going to sabotage your fitness journey, whatever it is, then no, it's not okay. But analyzing that with the mind, even though that's, what we mostly tend to do, and we project our thoughts onto it, and we become critical and analytical and all of that. We're trying to get that out of the way and make all of these decisions from the center, the core of our being. What serves us and everyone around us in a heartfelt, compassionate, open-minded, open self way, and serves the greater good. Coming from this place will allow for more joy, more ecstasy, and more participatory action with self in the unfolding story of our lives. So just sit and feel that for a moment. Whew. All of that information, hopefully it's helped to light up the energy centers in your body, and you can at least imagine, intend that you can feel that inner calm, the eye of the storm within your being. And it's sort of a neat image, because then you're like, oh yeah, my whole life is like this big tornado happening around me, and I can choose to engage. I can choose to engage, or I can choose to say sayonara, right? We can have more agency in what we are engaging with and why, both inward and outward. Well, that's what I've got for you this week, my darling hearts. That's your energy practice for the week. I hope that you take time to really keep tapping into that central column, that core of your being, and practicing coming from your knowing from there. And it's been a wonderful journey with you this month. I hope that you have been able to practice with some of the asana practices, that these energy practices have served you well. And I would love to hear from you. Please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And leave a comment below about your thoughts, how this practice went for you, where you're at in your journey, your spiritual journey, your growth journey. How are you doing? I would love to hear from you. It's such a pleasure to be your humble little guide on these little excursions. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I can't wait to see you next time. Namaste.